did want to ask you, I saw that Bleacher Report threw out a suggestion. It is just a suggestion, no definitive deal in the works or anything, saying that the Packers need to go out and get either Jadeveon Clowney or Rasul Douglas. Weigh in on the players if you'd like, but do you get the sense the Packers are still interested in adding this offseason?
I think I haven't heard that they are or aren't, to be perfectly frank. I would just say that what happens here is it's July 10th, and by July 22nd, 12 days from now, every team will have every player in training camp, with the exception of the holdouts. And I think starting next week, and especially the week after, you see teams all of a sudden take stabs on players like a Jadeveon Clowney or Rasul Douglas. I'm not telling you that Green Bay will do that, just to kind of bolster the roster, last-minute additions. And some of these veterans, sometimes, they also opt to sit out the first week or two. They want to see where there are openings, who has an injury, and who cares if you're a veteran. You don't need to go through the first couple of weeks of camp anyway. So there are a couple of ways of looking at this. I just think we're in a little bit of a quieter period right now, and I think these things will start picking up next week with players like that. I have not heard that Green Bay is or isn't interested. I know that when the Panthers went to trade Jadeveon Clowney, there wasn't a lot of interest at that point in time. He's a guy that has been able to rush the passer and be productive in the right systems in recent years. And Rasul Douglas, Green Bay knows pretty well already.
Adam, what can you tell me about this NFLPA collusion findings? Now, I'll give you a little background. And you covered the league at this time. We couldn't stand 𝘃𝘃𝙀𝙀. Most players could not stand him, okay, because we knew he was just a puppet for 𝘾𝙃𝙀𝙀𝙀. So every time, and the only time he started coming to Green Bay is when Reggie showed up. Never showed up before. So when he would come, players would just lay into him, okay? I'm not surprised that this went on one bit. But is anything going to come of this? Because it sounds pretty sleazy to me.
Huh. Well, first of all, it's funny. I was on the phone with somebody this morning talking about everything that's going on. And this particular person who's tied into the union side said to me, and I quote, "I really miss 𝘃𝘃𝙀𝙀 right now." So I don't mean to make you gag on you,
really?
Chewy, or
wow.
that, but
okay.
That's what somebody said to me this morning. That I've done this for 35 years, so a lot of people you've known for a long period. This guy's like, I know that people had questions about Gene. Not everybody always liked Gene, but right about now, I really miss Gene because Gene, he was around, he was there, and people had their complaints, obviously, but I think Gene did do a lot of good things, and people underrated what he brought to the table as the executive director of the NFLPA. What's going on now just seems to be very messy, very sordid, and everybody's still going through it and trying to figure out exactly where all this is going. This morning, I think you saw that my colleagues, Don Van Natta, Kalen Kaler, they filed a story that's available at ESPN.com that says that Lloyd Howell was approved as a partner in the Carlyle Group a few months before he took over as the executive director of the NFLPA, and the Carlyle Group works with the NFL. So it if nothing else, there's the appearance of a conflict of interest, and whether there's actually a conflict or not is another thing. But there's only the appearance. Not a great look for an incoming executive director. Don Van Natta and Kalen Kaler also said that sources say union lawyers asked Hal to consider resigning last week, and he refused. So I think it just tells you that there are a lot of questions. There are people seeking more information right now, and I don't think we've heard the last of this.
So just to be clear, because it's a little bit messy and it can be hard for people to follow. 2 weeks ago, news broke that the NFL had encouraged team owners to limit guaranteed money. There was the Deshaun Watson guaranteed contract. It sounds like that spooked owners, and they were like, whoa, we don't want to deal with that. Let's have a conversation amongst us that we're not going to do that going forward. The newest development, beyond what you just said, the filing from this morning, is that the NFLPA knew about it and sort of decided along with the NFL that they would not discuss it with the players, right? There was this confidentiality agreement between those two sides. But the reason this is messy and the reason that Chewy gets frustrated about this is because the NFLPA is supposed to inform the players of these types of things, right, Chew?
Yes,
they're supposed to have the players' backs. So now if you're a player in the NFL, even if there's always been this sort of like love-hate relationship between the Players Association, now there's all of this mistrust, distrust,
right.
Like you did all this stuff behind the player's back, and that's why it has become, to Chewy's point, why it's become a big, big story.
And I think that one thing that players want and demand, many things, but transparency. All you're looking for is people to be open and honest about what's going on. And I think there are a lot of players who feel like the NFLPA isn't being transparent in these particular situations with a lot of this information. And now that they weren't being transparent then, they're wondering, okay, well, what else is there that we don't know? And I think a lot of people's antenna is up right now.
Adam, do you like the Rams? I see a lot of love with the pundits around the country. Have a lot of love for the Rams. Do you share?
Yeah.
You do?
I'll say that I do like the Rams. I think they're a good team. I think they're one of the better teams in the NFC. I think they're the favorites in the NFC West, so that tells you I like the Rams. I think the team that people are not talking about in the NFC, the team that is better than people realize, a team that people continually are sleeping on, a team that's underrated. And I can't believe they're not generating more commission. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
That's what I was going to say. I was sitting here going, Buccaneers.
Yeah,
Buccaneers. And you're always on top of the Buccaneers.
No, I know, but their defense is a little suspect. Wasn't their defense not great last year? I mean, unbelievable offense, and adding 𝘃𝘃 is only going to help, but I thought defense would be a big question mark.
Well, I think, but you've got Todd Bowles there, right, in Tampa.
Yeah, sure.
And he's a defensive-minded coach, which doesn't solve everything. But I'm just opening up their defense here to take a look at like the full defense, right? So on defense, the defense from Vita Vea, 𝘾𝙃𝙀𝙀𝙀, 2 stars. I've been told that Hassan Reddick has been tearing it up during OTAs for whatever that's worth at the left outside linebacker spot. Logan Hall is a former high pick. Levante David is somebody you can count on at linebacker. Yaya Diaby's been great. Zion McCollum, they're trying to re-sign. In the secondary, you got Tyke Smith, Antoine Winfield, Jamel Dean.
Yeah, that sounds. Yeah,
it's a good defense. The defense, I don't believe, is the strength. The offense is first rate, and I just think as a team in general, I'm surprised that we haven't gotten more conversation about the Bucs. Like you're asking about the Rams, and I had somebody asking me this morning, Eagles, and people talking about whether the Niners are going to be back, and who in the NFC Central is going to the NFC North is going to emerge. And I just say, like, nobody's talking about the Bucs. I know they lost Tristan Wirfs, their all-pro left tackle yesterday, potentially for a month with that knee injury if he goes on PUP. Yeah, he's a really good player, but I think that team is. I think the Buccaneers are very good.
That's probably the worst division in football, right?
Feels like it's getting more competitive, though.
I don't know. New Orleans is going to be no quarterback. Atlanta's usually Atlanta, and Carolina's still trying to dig themselves out.
The only thing I have here, the one caveat, is the Buccaneers, I think, do they have a tough schedule this season? I was trying to pull it up as we were chit-chatting here.
I don't know if they do because they're playing their division for starters.
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
Right?
Adam, is Cousins going to get traded?
Chewy, the issue there right now is that there's not a team that needs him. There's not a team that needs a Kirk Cousins. Minnesota traded for Sam Howell. Pittsburgh signed Aaron Rodgers. What other teams were out there that needed a player like a Kirk Cousins? And because that's the case, he may get traded eventually. But I think personally that he's the guy that as soon as there is a quarterback injury for a team that suffers an injury to its starter, if that happens, and hopefully it doesn't, but if it happens, I think that's the first name that's going to pop onto people's lips and become discussed.
And how much do you love your old stomping grounds, Denver? Because a lot of people love them too.
Well, I think that they're a really good team, an improved team. The issue is, you're playing in the same division with the Chiefs, who obviously are really good, the Chargers, who I think are going to be even better, and I think the Raiders are going to be much better, much better. That may be, I mean, the AFC West and the NFC North might be the two best divisions in football.
Well, certainly the most improved, even just by, you got Harbaugh out there, you got Carroll out there, you got Peyton out there. I mean, isn't it crazy that that's the division? And then Reed for the head coaches.
Coaching legend,
wow.
coaching royalty in the AFC West.
I did pull up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers schedule. They do have the Eagles on their schedule. They have the 49ers. They have the Lions, and they have Buffalo, and then they've got the Rams. So some tough teams, If you think, and again, to your point, they got Carolina, twice in the last 3 games, so maybe you end on a high note. Like we so often don't do here on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy. Adam, we appreciate you hanging out with us this morning. Sorry, no Gabe. He's off this week, so no golf to chit-chat about. Oh, darn.
Next week's a big week, though.
Gabe will be back for next week.
Jen, I knew as soon as I saw the Gabe show, and that we were sitting in Wisconsin state chairs, I knew that the golf discussion would be limited today. So just on behalf of Gabe, I just want to say that we're all ready for the Genesis Scottish Open this weekend, and we got it tuned in already.
Hey guys, it's Jen from Jen, Gabe, and Chewy. Thanks for watching our clip. I'm sure it was super informative and educational. I'm just kidding. I love those knuckleheads. And we do it live every Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. on 94.5 ESPN Milwaukee. Make sure that you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you get informed anytime we drop new content.